And welcome into NFL Daily Mock Draft Edition. It is a Monday, of course, which means it's a good day to do mock drafts.
Mock Draft Monday. It's alliteration.
There you go. Cam Rogers coming at you alongside Tom Downey, our NFL mock draft analyst. Tom, you got your picks ready to roll, man.
I do indeed, and I do love some mock drafts. I'm excited to see what the people think of it. It'll all change once we get past the combine and all that, but I'm excited to see it.
All right, absolutely. Hey, let's not waste any time at all. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're on Facebook Live. We want you commenting, reacting, throwing in your thoughts about our picks. We want to get the people rolling throughout the program here today.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we are here on NFL by Chat Sports. Let's get into it. Selecting number 1 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft are the Cleveland Browns. Tom Downey, 0-16 campaign in 2017, hoping to rebound a little bit and at least get a few wins on the docket. I think they're in good position.
Well, I mean, there's nowhere to go but up, right?
True.
And they've got plenty of cap space, and frankly, I don't think they're in that bad of shape, relative to some other former number 1 overall pick teams that we've seen in the past. They've got plenty of cap space. They really have no notable free agents. Oh no, Isaiah Crowell. Oh no, backup lineman Marcus Martin. Josh Gordon's exclusive right, so he's not going anywhere. But as we see with Cleveland for really decades now, it starts and ends with the quarterback position. They have to find somebody, and I wouldn't be all that surprised, Cam, is even if they go out and sign somebody, as long as it's not a Kirk Cousins, if they sign/trade for someone and still spend the number 1 overall pick on a quarterback. I think Cleveland, unless they get Kirk Cousins, they are going to add a quarterback in this with the number 1 overall pick. And frankly, I think it's time they did so. They passed on the past. They passed on guys like Carson Wentz. They spent the 20th through 20th or 23rd overall pick on guys like Brandon Weeden and Brandon Quinn. Now it's time to go get a guy at number 1 overall.
All right, well, Cleveland Browns, they do select number 1 overall. They select number 4 overall as well. We'll get to that later. But, Tom, let's get to your pick. And, Tom, you have the Cleveland Browns selecting Sam Darnold, quarterback out of USC, number 1 overall.
Cam, this is the guy that you've been wanting to go number 1 overall.
Correct.
At least when you've done some mock drafts, this is who you've projected. I don't like this idea. But here's what I think is going to end up happening in Cleveland. I think they're going to go out and sign somebody like A.J. McCarron, who we know Hugh Jackson loves for some silly reason. And then they're going to say, oh, we don't have to take necessarily the most pro-ready prospect. Instead, we can draft a guy who needs some work. And that is where we sit right now with Sam Darnold as well, because Darnold is not a ready-made NFL quarterback. I know we see, USC quarterback, and when you stereotype a little bit here and you scout by the helmet, you go, USC, he's good to go. This is who he is as a quarterback. I don't think that's the case for Sam Darnold. Darnold needs a lot of work. The upside is there, maybe even more than a guy like Josh Rosen, but he's raw. His technique needs work. And I think we know we struggle with turnovers, and that's a big deal. My player comp for him, Cam, is actually one Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I agree with that
one. I did like Mariota more coming out of college than Winston. And I don't think that Sam Darnold is the best quarterback in this year's draft. It's a different guy who we'll discuss. I'm not going to give it away quite yet because, of course, he'll be in the first round here. But I do think he's one of the top guys, and I think with Sam Darnold, if the Browns take him, he might not play right away. He might be what the Eagles were going to do with Carson Wentz. Have a veteran in there, sit their quarterback for a year, and then bring him in and have him be the guy down the road.
Well, thanks for jumping on the bandwagon, Tom.
I don't
Coming
like it,
along
though.
for the ride, Sam Darnold, number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns. And selecting number 2 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft are the New York Giants. And they have been tied to Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold. They do really want to have a quarterback behind Eli Manning that they can kind of groom into that franchise in the post-Eli era here, Tom.
I mean, if you're the Giants, how often are you actually going to be picking in the top 2, top 3, top 4?
Correct.
In theory, you shouldn't be drafting at all. So when you have the chance to actually go out and get your quarterback, I think you have to do it. And I think that's where the Giants are at. Yeah, it'd be great to get a guy like Saquon Barkley. It'd be great to get an offensive lineman who can actually help protect whoever you have at quarterback, be it Eli Manning or somebody else. Yeah, you desperately need a linebacker, and Smith would fit that role very, very well out of Georgia. But I think if you're the New York Giants, you don't ever plan on being this high in the draft NFL again, and you have the rare chance to have one down year get your quarterback, and go right back up to near the top. So if you're the New York Giants, you got to go QB at number 2, unless a team blows you away with a trade offer.
All right, so the New York Giants have an opportunity here. Let's get to the pick. And Tom, you have the Giants selecting Josh Rosen at number 2 overall.
I think Rosen should go number 1 if we're debating between Darnold and Rosen, because I think that Rosen is a more pro-ready quarterback when you look through what he brings to an NFL team. His footwork and technique, it's as like you drew it up in a backfield. Like, it is perfect for an NFL quarterback. Now, there are still concerns with Josh Rosen. His arm isn't necessarily the strongest, but it is still strong enough. I don't think in general with Rosen that he's exactly the perfect quarterback. I do, though, think he is a franchise quarterback. So if you're a team like the Giants, you pull the trigger on him. Now, there are some rumblings that maybe he's not the most well-liked quarterback, or that he's a bit of an odd duck, and he said that there was the one that was used as a negative, that Rosen wanted to use the NFL to make money, and I'm like, well, duh. Like,
it's a profession.
Of course he does. Like, that's not a bad thing. And like, I know that Rosen kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, and that's not always the most ideal thing from an NFL perspective. I don't have a big deal with it. I think he's Matt Ryan. I think he carried a bad UCLA team. The completion percentage is not that high. They couldn't catch the football, and they could barely block for him. And Rosen, maybe the biggest concern for me in the end is some injury concerns. And that shoulder that didn't look right early in the year looked much better later on in the season. But I think at number 2 overall, if you're the Giants, he makes perfect sense for your franchise quarterback. Learn for a year behind Eli Manning, and then get handed the reins, even though I don't think he needs to learn for a year.
Look at that A&M game, and that's all the tape you really need to look at in terms of Josh Rosen and his repetitions and all that. So
I saw one comment from Dan Barks saying the Giants need to take the left guard out of Oklahoma, Orlando Brown, who we'll get to later, and move their left tackle back to right tackle. That's funny to me because I get why Giants fans want to tackle. Orlando Brown, though, reminds me so much of Eric Flowers.
Yikes.
Like, I'm concerned he's going to be the exact same type of player.
All right, Tom, there you go. At number 2 overall, you have Josh Rosen. And selecting number 3 overall in the 2018 NFL mock draft here at Chat Sports, the Indianapolis Colts. And Tom, they got a lot of salary cap space, but they need help on the interior of that offensive line as well as the defensive line.
I think for the Colts, you're gonna see them spend a lot of picks as it comes to offensive guard, offensive tackle, probably not center because they already spent one there. Maybe a defensive tackle, though probably not. You definitely want to get another edge rusher as they move more towards a 4-3 defense. But when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, I think they are in a unique position as it comes to being in the draft. They are at number 3 overall, but they do not need a franchise quarterback. They already have Andrew Luck, we would assume. So what you could see the Colts do is you could see the Colts try and make a move down.
I agree.
And I think if you're a team like, we'll mention the Bills later on. I think even a team like the Jets or the Broncos here, and we'll get to a weigh-in on this as well. I think you could see the Colts very much say, when we get to the combine, want to say, hey, you know what? We are ready to move down. Send us your best offer. And I think the Colts should try and do that, Cam, because let's say they make a deal down with like the Jets if they want to leapfrog Denver and ensure the Bills don't move up as well. If you're a team like the Colts, you can move down with the Jets or whomever, or even the Cardinals potentially.
I was going to say the Cardinals, yeah.
Get some more assets and still get a guy on the interior side of the ball that improves your play. And that's what I think is the big deal for the Colts. But in the end, I think they're looking at 2 main areas as we sit right now. Edge rusher, a guy like Bradley Chubb, or an offensive lineman, maybe like a Quenton Nelson.
All right. So, folks, throw in your thoughts about the Indianapolis Colts in our weigh-in here. Should the Colts trade down from the number 3 overall pick? All right, Tom, let's get to that pick. You mentioned Quenton Nelson, and there he is, number 3 overall to the Colts, Tom.
I'm going to waffle back and forth for quite a while on whether it's Quenton Nelson or whether it's Bradley Chubb. I think whichever one doesn't go here still goes in the top 10. If Nelson was a tackle, there would be consideration for him actually being the number 1 overall pick. But because he plays guard, that's a position that isn't as highly valued by NFL teams. You don't often see guards go there early. Look at Zach Martin. He was a mid-first round pick, and he's the best guard in the NFL right
Correct,
now.
yeah.
You see a guy like Brandon Scherff go in the first round, and I think that worked out well for both sides. And I was a little surprised. Oh, you took a guard in the first round? Well, he's been really good. And I think if you're the Colts, look, you got to protect Andrew Luck. And you have to, if you do think Luck's going to be healthy, which I think he is, I hope he is, I think the Colts think he is, you have to make sure that he stays upright as much as possible. Getting a guy like Nelson allows you to do that. I know he's a guard, but if you ignore positional value, I think Nelson might be the best player in the draft.
Wow.
Like he is going to be a day one starter at left guard, a 10-plus year starter, and I think a guy as well that you could even see him get Pro Bowl and All-Pro consideration while he's on his rookie contract. That's the ideal scenario for any draft pick. Even though he's a guard, Nelson brings you that type of value.
He's a road grader.
He is going to be dominant early in his NFL career. There are not many flaws I see with Quenton Nelson in his game. Like, he is everything you want as a guard. I think he's better than Zach Martin, and I love Zach Martin.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that you have at that third bullet there a better prospect than Zach Martin certainly speaks volumes.
Prospect necessarily, not better player right now.
Yeah.
So, and if the Colts trade down, I think there's a chance that he falls, because I don't think a team like the Jets, maybe the Broncos could do it. I think the Bucs and the Niners are both options, but if the Colts trade down a few spots, I think Nelson or Chubb is still going to be there. And as we'll mention this as we go along, the quarterbacks are going to go early. Some notable prospects will fall in the draft.
All right, Tom, so you got Quenton Nelson going number 3 overall to the Indianapolis Colts. And selecting number 4 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft are the Cleveland Browns, thanks to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, this is from that Deshaun Watson trade. Now, we know the Browns have already taken a quarterback. So now the question is, what do they do with this selection? And we have a reaction poll here for you guys as well. Should they go Saquon Barkley, Minkah Fitzpatrick, or maybe a Calvin Ridley? Ooh, Cam, could they go 2 quarterbacks? You got to figure one of them's going to pan out, right?
Classic Cleveland. Oh, man.
So in the end, as we sit right now, maybe the Browns go someone else at number 1, and they still need a quarterback at 4. I think they're looking at 2 main areas. I think they are looking at a Saquon Barkley and solidify that offense, or they're looking defense with a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. With Myles Garrett and Emmanuel Ogbah already on the roster, I don't think they go Bradley Chubb. So I think it's one of those first 2 guys, unless they make a big splash in free agency.
All right, folks, throw in your thoughts. Give us a heart for Barkley, a like for Fitzpatrick, a wow face for Ridley, and a laughing face for another quarterback. Let's get to the pick, Tom. And you've got Saquon Barkley going to the Cleveland Browns at number 4 overall, running back out of PSU.
I love what Barkley brings to an NFL team, and you don't often see 230-pound guys move as fast as Barkley does. He's not quite the power back that Fournette is, because with Fournette, and this is a big difference between me with a guy like Fournette and a guy like Barkley or even an Ezekiel Elliott, when it comes to Barkley, he doesn't always take what's given to him. And that's my biggest knock on Barkley as a prospect. His runs can result, and unfortunately do result, in negative loss plays. He has this issue where he sees 3 yards being given to him, and instead of just taking those 3 yards and accepting he's only getting 3 on the play, he goes, you know what, I'm going to try and bounce it out wide, and I'm going to try and get 30. Sometimes he does get the 30. Sometimes he also only ends up with just the 3 yards, or even loses 3 yards on top of that. So Barkley will be a little bit frustrating in that regard, but he's a better pass catcher than Fournette was. I also think he's a better pass catcher than Ezekiel Elliott was coming out. Now, Zeke was a better blocker in the passing game. I don't think he's as good as Fournette, because of the negative plays kind of impact me on that area, but he is definitely worth a top 5 pick. I know some don't like spending early picks on running backs, and I understand that, but with Barkley for Cleveland, he now becomes the offense. They don't have that guy right now. They don't have the focal point of their offense in place. It's not Corey Coleman. I like Duke Johnson. It's not Duke Johnson. It's not Crow. It's not David Njoku. You draft Saquon Barkley just like the Jags did. That's how you run. That is who you run your offense through it. And that's what Cleveland needs right now.
Think about it, Tom. Saquon, Darnold as a 1-2 punch for the ages going forward in the Cleveland Browns franchise. Perhaps they bring in a free agent quarterback as well to kind of mix things up a bit. But certainly would be really fun to watch, bring a lot of excitement to the Cleveland Browns faithful out there. All right, folks, let's summarize our list so far. We've got Sam Darnold at number 1, Josh Rosen at number 2, Quenton Nelson at number 3, and Saquon Barkley at number 4. We are indeed presented by AutoList. Hey, looking for a used or new car? Tired of browsing a million sites? Go to Autolist.com, ladies and gentlemen, to browse the largest source of inventory on the web, or download their top-rated app on iOS or Android. Tom, really fantastic.
It makes my life easier. I just moved to Dallas. I'm tired of getting the runaround trying to go to like 6 different sites to search for a car. Now I can just go to one. It's all in one spot for me. It is the best auto car search out there you'll find.
Whether it's your first car or your 15th car, ladies and gentlemen, you got to check out this website. Autolist.com. Many thanks to them for sponsoring NFL Daily here today. Let's continue along in our mock draft and selecting number 5 overall in the 2018 NFL mock draft, the Denver Broncos.
This is where we kind of get to the, okay, what's going to happen in free agency at quarterback? And this is kind of where I think things can get a little bit chaotic, as when we look back a month and like, oh, wow, this really changed at this particular pick. If Denver goes out and gets a Kirk Cousins, they're not going quarterback. Like, it makes no sense for them. I think as we sit right now, it does make some sense for them to go quarterback. And there are some guys we'll discuss here. We'll look at a guy like Baker Mayfield. I think would be a perfect fit for Denver. Outside of the quarterbacks, I think offensive guard and linebacker are the 2 main areas. If Denver goes out and throws money at a Kirk Cousins, they could be in a situation where, hey, we sit and we can take a Roquan Smith, or we can take a Quenton Nelson. But with quarterback, and Cam, I'm curious what you think here. If you're Denver, would you rather draft someone like a Baker Mayfield, or would you rather throw money at Kirk Cousins, or maybe do one of the other options?
Well, I'm putting myself in the eyes of John Elway, because I think Elway wants to win now. He knows there's an opportunity with this defense, and if he gets Kirk Cousins, he can plug him in immediately and expect to get a good amount of wins, rather than go with Baker Mayfield, which would be more of a project type of deal. I don't think Baker Mayfield can lead Denver to 10-plus wins and capture the AFC West. So in that vein, I have Elway actually as one of my bold predictions for this offseason to go ahead and grab Kirk Cousins. I think he would be a good fit with offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave. I think they keep C.J. Anderson, which is important. I also believe they address the offensive line, free agency, and the draft as well. So I'm throwing up my heart. All right, let's get to your pick, Tom, at number 5. Well, after all of that, Tom, you got Baker Mayfield going to the Denver Broncos.
Well, if Denver doesn't get a Kirk Cousins, if they settle for maybe even someone like a Case Keenum, I still think they look at a guy like Baker Mayfield. They had an up-close, personal look with him at the Senior Bowl, which is exactly what Denver wanted and, frankly, needed, by the way. So with Baker Mayfield, I know he's undersized. And I know maybe some Browns fans in particular still have nightmares about the Johnny Manziel era. Baker Mayfield is not Johnny Football. They're not similar players outside of their size and their skin color. Like, Johnny Manziel's footwork was awful. He did not have the arm that Baker Mayfield does. He wasn't as accurate as Baker Mayfield either. I know there was the DUI arrest. That's going to have to be checked out for NFL teams to make sure Baker's clean off the field. But I think this is a highly accurate quarterback who elevates the teammates around him. I wasn't as sold on Baker Mayfield this time last year because I'm like, you know what? He had Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, D.D. Westbrook, a lot of talent around him. And then all those guys leave, and a bunch of guys no one outside of Norman had ever heard of step up and looked really good. I think that is a testament to Baker Mayfield. I think he's the best quarterback in this year's draft.
Wow.
He's not going to go there early because of his size. I think whoever drafts him, as long as they build him up the right way, because we know that fit does matter, is going to have massive success in the NFL.
All right, Tom. Baker Mayfield going number 5 overall to the Denver Broncos. And selecting number 6 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft, the New York Jets 5-11 campaign back in 2017, a good amount of cap space and a lot of needs on that offensive side.
Quarterback, I think, is where they're going to look here at the number 6 overall pick. And unless, much like Denver, they don't end up getting a Kirk Cousins. If they get Kirk, they're not going to go quarterback. I think they'll look for a corner. Maybe they try and move Minkah there. We'll talk more about Fitzpatrick here in a little bit. They could go a guy like Bradley Chubb, but I think quarterback makes so much sense to the Jets, especially if a Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, or Sam Darnold is on the board. However, Cam, none of those guys are on the board right now for the Jets. And that's an issue because it leaves them with really 2 options and maybe only one option. and that is Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. And I know you feel similarly. NFL teams love Josh Allen, Cam.
They do.
I'm curious how the audience here thinks, so let us know in the comments which one you would rather have. But Cam, teams like Josh Allen a lot. And I think you'll see come the NFL draft, he is going to go earlier than you would ideally see him go.
Tom, I mentioned my bold predictions, and another one was the Jets going with Josh Allen at number 6 overall. And look, I don't think it's a great location for him if he does indeed go to the Jets. I don't think it's a great opportunity for him to develop and become a franchise quarterback, but it would be a very Jets move to go with Josh Allen. So let's get to your pick, Tom. Call it foreshadowing. You've got the Jets going with Josh Allen, quarterback out of Wyoming.
I get it. Like, I am of the same belief for everyone who says, how can you draft Josh Allen? He's got 56% completion percentage. He didn't even make that many plays at Wyoming. He didn't improve as a player from last year. And he's right. Look, and everyone's right. Josh Allen is not a consistent player. He's really not even that good of a prospect as we sit without projecting. You take Josh Allen in the top 10 because of what he could be. And you see the splash plays from Josh Allen and the upside. There's a play against Nebraska. Rolls out to his right off balance, drops a dime from 40 yards out. Beautiful throw. Not many quarterbacks can make that throw. So if a lot of NFL teams and scouts are going to go, oh man, look at the physical tools, the arm strength, the upside. Get him with my coach, and we can make him into the best quarterback in the NFL. The issue is that as of right now, Josh Allen isn't worth a first-round pick. Josh Allen isn't worth a second or third-round pick. Josh Allen is barely worth a fourth-round pick as a prospect.
Yet here he is at number 6.
Because NFL teams are going to talk themselves into loving Josh Allen, and frankly, they already have. He's Kyle Bowler 2.0. Big arm, big body, strong, can make all the throws in the world, has a rocket for an arm, but is not accurate. And unfortunately, you don't often see quarterbacks improve their accuracy once they join the NFL, especially when they haven't shown improvement like Josh Allen hasn't. But I think he goes early, and I think unless he goes to a really good landing spot, he's not going to have success in the NFL. I will, though, say I hope I'm wrong because I don't like cheering against people.
All right, so Tom Downey has Josh Allen going at number 6 overall to the New York Jets. And selecting number 7 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they need help in the interior of that offensive line, and really the entire offensive line, as well as pass rushing ability. They finished dead last in sacks last year.
I, for one, think it's time to give up on the Donovan Smith era in Tampa Bay, but they might not quite feel the same way. There's also maybe not a great tackle worth taking here. We'll talk more about Connor Williams here in just a second, but I don't know if I'm ready to buy into Orlando Brown either. I think Quenton Nelson also makes sense for the Bucs because you need offensive line help. Just take one, plug him in, and boom, there you go. You've got your long-term guard set up there. He can be a long-term starter for you. But you mentioned it, Cam. They need a pass rusher in the worst possible way.
Yep.
If their top guy's on the board, they might have to reach for one. Lucky for them, as the way this mock draft shook out, the top guy's on the board.
Okay, so let's get to that pick. All right, Tom, that top guy is Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State.
I think Chubb in Tampa Bay is a perfect fit. And I don't know if it's actually going to happen because you could see a team like the Colts say, you know what, now let's take the impact edge rusher. We'll go get a guard later in the draft, and Chubb ends up going 3, and maybe Chubb and Nelson are swapped in the actual draft. But he's such a perfect fit for Tampa. He's best as a 4-3 edge rusher. That's what Tampa Bay plays. You got a guy with 2 straight years of 20-plus tackles for loss and 10-plus sacks. That's wildly impressive. Now, he's not Myles Garrett. I don't think he's that caliber of edge rusher, but he's definitely worth a top 5, top 10 pick. And if you're Tampa, I am strongly considering moving up in the draft for him. Because the difference between Bradley Chubb and, say, Arden Key, Marcus Davenport, Harold Landry is pretty significant.
Yep.
It's not even like last year's class where you got Myles Garrett and then guys like Derek Barnett. It's a steeper drop-off this year. So if you're Tampa, you are praying that quarterbacks go early because that means Chubb is more likely to fall to you with the number 7 overall pick. I think if the Bucs can get Chubb, they're going to be ecstatic. You have to go up and get him. If you have to give up a third-round pick or fourth-round pick, if you're Tampa, I think you strongly consider doing that because of what he can bring to you in that gaping hole you have at edge rusher where you don't have enough production.
Tom Downey has Bradley Chubb going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 7 overall. Let's get to the next one. Picking number 8 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft will be the Chicago Bears. They need a wide receiver in the worst way, Tom. Other positions to monitor, though, of course, you got the corner, tackle, linebacker, and edge, but everybody's pointing to the wideout.
Corner starts to make more sense here if they lose Kyle Fuller and or Prince Amukamara. If they lose one or both of those guys, then you could see him go, hey, you know what? Denzel Ward's here, Joshua Jackson's here. Let's take a corner. I do think they could actually go offensive line, especially if they get someone like Jarvis Landry. They might pass on a guy like Calvin Ridley. Offensive tackle, I'm not ruling out what Charles Leno has fared pretty well. I think he might be better at right tackle. You can cut Bobby Massey, move Leno to right tackle, or draft a tackle here early at right tackle. That really solidifies your offensive line, which is already pretty solid on the interior. But as we sit right now, look, man, they need wide receivers. We had a YouTube commenter tell me Cam Meredith is a number 1 guy. He's not.
Come on.
He's not a number 1 guy. He's also an RFA. They got Dontrell Inman and Kendall Wright. Kevin White is always hurt. I'm still not convinced he's actually a real player. So if you're the Bears and you don't get one in free agency, I mean, you got to go wide receiver at 8 because you need the help in the worst possible way, and you can't trade down that far because there are some teams that could be looking at receiver as well.
All right, let's get to the pick. Tom, you have Calvin Ridley going number 8 overall to the Chicago Bears.
I don't know if Ridley's really worth a top 10 pick because I don't know if he has the high-end wide receiver 1 potential you like, but I also know that Ridley is about as pro-ready as they come. He's going to turn 24 in his first year, which is pretty old for a top 10 pick, or really any first-round pick, but he's going to make an instant impact. And there have been some discussion about, okay, what is Calvin Ridley's elite trait? His elite trait is that he gets open. Mm-hmm. He gets open with his route running. He's a pretty good athlete as well. I'll take a guy who always finds a way to get open on the field, and that's what I want to see in the end. If you're the Bears, and let's say you don't get Jarvis Landry, I'm okay with going Calvin Ridley in the top 10. Maybe you try and trade down like 2 spots, but anything more than that, I think you're in the risk of someone else taking him. So with Calvin Ridley, the fit makes sense. The value isn't that bad. He does remind me a little bit of Amari Cooper. I was
going to ask you about him.
He has some droppies as well. I don't know if he's maybe quite the upside of Cooper. I think his floor is also pretty high, though, as well. So with Calvin Ridley, I love the fit for the Chicago Bears. Unless they get a corner or a better receiver in free agency, I think they're going to stick with Calvin Ridley and just upgrade and say, okay, here you go, Mitchell Trubisky. Here is your number 1 wide receiver. This is who we're going to have you be with your dynamic option because he needs help. I like Trubisky. He's very accurate. I think he and Ridley would be a very good pairing.
Well, Trubisky didn't stand a chance last year with the cast of characters on the outside that he had at his disposal there playing for the Chicago Bears. So Calvin Ridley going number 8 overall. Let's summarize what we have so far. Tom Downey's mock draft here. Sam Darnold at number 1, Josh Rosen at 2, Quenton Nelson at 3, Saquon Barkley at number 4. And then 5 through 8, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Bradley Chubb, and Calvin Ridley. This is NFL Daily presented by Autolist. Driving a car is fun. Car shopping should be too. Go to Autolist.com or download their top-rated apps for iPhone or Android today. All right, Tom, let's get into pick number 9. And selecting number 9 overall in the 2018 NFL mock draft here by Chat Sports, the San Francisco 49ers, although we have a little star next to that because, of course, they have to do a coin flip with the Oakland Raiders. Tom, we did our own coin flip. We got the Niners here.
Yeah, they won this one. And with the 49ers, quarterback no longer needed. They've locked up Jimmy G long term. I think you'd see him try and make a move down. With the way the board worked out, though, if you're the Niners, you're like, cool. All we would have wanted really is Quenton Nelson to still be available. Didn't end up happening. You've got guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Roquan Smith, even a Joshua Jackson. If you're the Niners, maybe you don't trade down. And this is, I think, an overarching theme in this year's draft. If the quarterbacks go early, teams in that aren't going quarterback in that top 10 are going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to get somebody really good, and that's where we fit right now with the 49ers. They've got Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's on the board, Roquan Smith as well. They're going to get a good guy if this is the way that the draft breaks down.
Throw in your respective votes, ladies and gentlemen. Who should the 49ers draft at number 9? Minkah Fitzpatrick, Roquan Smith, an offensive lineman, or perhaps Joshua Jackson? Let's get to the pick. And Tom, you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, the versatile defensive back out of Alabama, going to the 49ers.
Melvin Lewis got it right. I saw Vincent saying they thought they were going to take Sutton because that's what he doesn't want to have happen. With Fitzpatrick, he's an interesting prospect because he is a very talented defensive back, and he truly can play, I think, every position in the secondary. But what he did this year for the 49ers or for Alabama was not a free safety role. That was more Ronnie Harrison, although he did play some deep safety. He didn't really play outside corner as well, though he did do that earlier in his college career. So with Minkah Fitzpatrick, as of right now, based on what he did, it was more along the lines of being that hybrid safety nickel guy. And that's fine, but how high do you want to take one of those guys? Mm-hmm. The good news for Fitzpatrick is I believe he can be a deep free safety. I think he has the size and the athletic ability to be an outside corner. So with the 49ers, maybe you lose Eric Reed, or you do Jaquiski Tart, who looked pretty good down the stretch.
Played well, yep.
Maybe you put him in outside corner. I think no matter what, if you're the 49ers, I think he gives you the opportunity to have a long-term impact secondary member, and that's what you want in the top 10. You want guys who make an impact right away. I think Fitzpatrick fits that mold, be it at safety or be it at corner, because he can play cornerback as well.
All right, Tom,
he has the size to be that lanky outside corner.
Minkah Fitzpatrick, number 9 overall to the San Francisco 49ers. And selecting at number 10 overall in our 2018 NFL mock draft, the Oakland Raiders' disappointing campaign in 2017, just 6 wins to show for it, so they're kind of resetting now with Chucky in town.
I'm curious what Oakland ends up doing, and I do wonder how much input John Gruden will have with GM Reggie McKenzie. Linebacker and cornerback remain massive needs for the Oakland Raiders. Cornerback maybe took a step up as well because they went ahead and they cut David Amerson. But I'm looking at linebacker, and I had a nice Twitter debate the other day with a very kind gentleman who told me the Raiders didn't need a linebacker at all because they had Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin. When I say linebacker, and I do want to clarify on this, I don't mean edge rusher. I don't mean outside linebacker or like a 3-4 outside linebacker. I mean a middle and a weak side linebacker. Navarro Bowman can fill one of those roles, most likely at the Mike middle linebacker spot.
Yep.
But you still need a weak side linebacker so that you're not playing with Nicholas Morrow all year long. So with Oakland, I think you're looking at really 2 options early in the draft. I think you're looking, okay, is there a tackle we want? No, probably not. And then you look at, okay, let's see what's going on at linebacker. Ooh, Roquan Smith's on the board, but also at cornerback, Josh Jackson's there. Mm-hmm. So is Denzel Ward. They could go with any of those 3 guys. But I think if this is the way the draft breaks down, Oakland's going to be like, yes, we got a great option to get an impact defensive player, help solidify that side of the ball.
All right, so with that, Tom, let's get to the pick at number 10. And you've got the Raiders going with Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia.
What concerns me most about the Raiders going Roquan is not the recent buzz around Tremaine Edmonds, who we'll get to here in just a little bit, don't you guys worry. And it's not the undersized with the Roquan Smith, it's that Oakland under Reggie McKenzie hasn't typically valued linebackers. And that's kind of the way the NFL works, is you can't invest a first-round pick in every single position or throw a bunch of money at every single spot. At a certain point, you have to go cheap in certain areas. And I think with Oakland, they've decided to go cheap at linebacker. With a guy like Roquan on the board, I think that's where they go, you know what, let's not be the Giants and always pass on a linebacker. Let's go out and get the guy we need. And Roquan would be a perfect fit in Oakland as that weak side linebacker. Yes, he's undersized, but he can fly. He'll hit hard as well. He's got that sideline-to-sideline coverage ability. I think Roquan is easily a top 10, if not a top 5 guy in this year's class. I think he and Oakland is a perfect match if the Raiders are willing to invest in a linebacker early.
And the other thing is, does Roquan need to bulk up a little bit, hit the weight room a little bit?
Look, at 235 and 6 foot, that's fine.
Okay.
It's always going to be the lack of height when I say size. I think he's plenty muscular. Roquan Smith, and we're going to mention Tremaine Edmonds here in a little bit, and I'll go more in depth in here. But Smith right now is a better player than Tremaine Edmonds is. Now, he's not quite as long or as lanky, but I think Smith is going to be the best linebacker from this year's class because although he's not as young as Edmonds, I think he's a better player as an actual football player, even though he's not the same athlete.
All right, Tom, you've got Roquan Smith going number 10 overall to the Oakland Raiders.